Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty is a game I went from loving to hating, loving again, and hating again. Now I can say with certainty that I really like MGS2 and really hate its story. Here's why. The same gameplay model of MGS1 exists within MGS2. Same arcade-style stealth action, same goal of going from A to B and so on. But MGS2 improves on MGS1 in almost every way. It has manual first-person view aiming and actually designs a lot of its encounters around that. Movement is a lot snappier and responsive. You can turn and aim from cover, hold up guards at gunpoint. There's rolling and hanging features which you're going to be using a lot. And the game occasionally uses the environment in ways games today still don't. Even running and gunning is a lot easier since the button to move while you shoot is L1 now. New evasive periods make getting out of tight jams a lot harder. Alert guards are way more dangerous than regular guards. They have roll calls, react to noises, and just in general they're a lot more fun to dick around with. I don't think they make the game harder, they're still incredibly easy to exploit, but they make the game a lot more enjoyable, and unlike MGS1, they're a consistent presence. Now the set pieces are still a low point. Escorting Emma is one of the worst experiences in any MGS game to date. Getting across the ruined Big Shell is still annoying and not the least bit fun, but the experience is so smooth and those bits are so brief that it just doesn't bother me anymore. Even the action set pieces feel fun now thanks to MGS2's unconventional yet great feeling gunplay. And even though you have to backtrack to the very start of Big Shell, MGS2 does what MGS1 didn't. It offsets the trek back with multiple boss encounters back to back. Fortune sucks, but Fat Man's fantastic. His fight kinda takes advantage of traps the way Ravens did, and takes advantage of MGS2's new mechanics beautifully. It's not hard, but it's fun as hell and feels like a proper reward for all that bomb disposal bullshit. There's fewer bosses in MGS2 than MGS1, but minus Fortune, they're all great. Olga's a way better first boss than Ocelot. Her fight implements the environment in ways most gunfight encounters to this day still can't, and unlike Ocelot, there's an actual stealth element to her fight. The Harrier is like the Hind done right. It doesn't drag, you're not sticking towards one area all fight long, and it has a surprising variety of attacks. Vamp's fight, like Fat Man and Olga, takes advantage of almost all the new mechanics. You're juggling a lot to take him down, but it always feels doable, which keeps the fight satisfying. Ray's fight really gets mileage out of that rolling mechanic and keeps you moving all fight long, and while the sword mechanics kinda suck, so all this is a great final boss. He has a real variety of attacks. Like Ray, his fight gets mileage out of the rolling mechanic, and like the rest of the fights, you're not just doing one thing all fight long. Shit, even that non-fight with Fortune can still feel entertaining and satisfying. There's also bonus bosses in the VR and variety missions, all of which are fun and weird. Unfortunately, MGS2 has the exact same problem as MGS1. The level design is too bare bones. And now you have a gun that can knock everyone out, which doesn't make a sound and has the reach of a sniper rifle. In rooms with no real cover, oftentimes you can just knock everyone out and run from A to B. I know Extreme Mode tries to offset this with more guards and cameras, but that doesn't fix the level design itself. Most of Big Shell just feels dull, especially when compared to the more open-ended and cover-heavy Tanker and Single Room from Arsenal, both of which use their space really well. Fortunately, MGS2 also has VR, variety mode, alt missions, boss survival, and Snake Tales. These are either series of additional rooms to sneak around in or same rooms with different parameters. A lot of the times it's still for stealth, but retries are immediate. Plus the VR rooms are really well designed, with plenty of cover spots and multiple paths to your goal. Rankings are still speed-based, but unlike MGS1, there's actual reward in the form of additional skins for Raiden and Snake. Each skin has their own set of weapons and variety missions. Some of these are really inventive and fun, others make me want to set shit on fire. But for the most part, it's just great, satisfying stealth action gameplay. If retextured and given extra boss fights, the bonus content alone could carry an entire other game. There's a lot that holds the gameplay back, and I really wish MGS2 just ditched set pieces altogether, but there's so much quality content within MGS2 that's nearly impossible to get bored of. I didn't always used to think this, but I truly believe that MGS2 is the best Solid Snake era game by Kojima Productions. Unfortunately, here's where we get to the writing.
I live on through this arm!
The premise is that this AI network called the Patriots is secretly controlling the country, like if HAL 9000 took over the Illuminati. And the threat that our new hero Raiden faces is in actuality one big simulation. Excellent premise, one that plays on the idea of information control nicely. Unfortunately, 90% of all cutscenes are exposition dumps that either explain what the Patriots are, spell out the plot, or are these ham-fisted attempts to repeat the exact same point over and over and over and over. How you say something is oftentimes more important than what you're actually saying. You can have something interesting to say, but if you're going to say it in the least interesting way possible, then you're not a storyteller. You're a keynote presentation. Of MGS2's full cutscenes, here's how many were actual cutscenes, and here's how many were codec calls. And of both, here's how many scenes weren't expository. Like every other MGS game, almost all of these scenes are one-sided. Unless they're villains, characters don't have conversations, they talk at each other. Most of the time when Raiden opens his mouth, it's so the person he's getting talked at can talk down his throat some more. On the subject, the characters in MGS2 are even more underdeveloped than the ones in MGS1. Until the very end of the game, Solidus's motivations don't inform who he is as a character or how he's portrayed. He's bad guy villain villain pants in almost all the scenes he's in until Federal Hall. He's more entertaining and menacing than Liquid, but he's just as one note. Imagine how interesting the dynamic between Solidus and the heroes could have been if they all realized that they had a common enemy. Instead, once we know what Solidus is all about, he's already dead. There's nothing we can do with the information. It doesn't lend any context to him acting like bad guy man all game long. I wasn't in love with Snake in MGS1, but he had personality. Raiden is a personality vacuum.
We've managed to avoid drowning.
Good job.
Almost every scene with him, he's getting talked at. What few character-centric scenes he actually has makes me want to shove toothpicks in my ears because usually they involve Rose.
Jack, what is it?
You wouldn't understand.
Try me, Jack. Please.
I can't, not to you.
Please, tell me. I can help you.
No, there's no way you'd understand.
You can tell Snake, but you won't tell me?
Even when we find out what Raiden really is, he never grows or changes. At the start of Big Show, Raiden's blindly doing as he's told. By the end, he's still just doing as he's told. His big moment at the end when he rejects the player doesn't come from change. It comes from Snake telling him repeatedly to find his own calling. And yeah, I could forgive all of that if the actual plot clicked with me. And up until the very end, it did. Solid Snake Simulator is a perfect summation of Big Show. A good plot twist is one that lends a new context to everything that came before and makes you go, oh shit, so that's why everything was the way it was. What Ocelot explains does just that. It makes perfect sense, because now there's a very specific reason for why the game played out the way it did. Then 10 minutes later, Computer Kernel says this.
The S3 is a system for controlling human will and consciousness. S3 is not you, a soldier trained in the image of Solid Snake. It is a method, a protocol that created a circumstance that made you what you are.
Basically, the real S3 is about societal conditioning, seeing if people will behave in accordance to scripts and simulations that the Patriots design. Our species is too stupid to be trusted with our own destiny, so the Patriots decide for us. That's also a really great premise. The problem is now, nothing that came before holds up. When S3 was a snake maker, everything that came before made perfect sense and had a very specific reason for calling back to Shadow Moses. But with the real S3, the reason for choosing Shadow Moses as the model for this simulation was because of its extreme circumstances. Suddenly, everything that lined up perfectly no longer holds up because now it's just way too broad. If the only excuse is extreme circumstances, by the network's own admission, any other extreme circumstances could have worked. The simulation could have been an entirely new crisis that wasn't just a retread of old ideas and story beats and still gotten the point across, or anything that lets us, the players, know that something about this feels unnatural. In other words, if S3 was gonna be about society, then the MGS2 shouldn't have felt like MGS1 again. If it wanted to do the Shadow Moses thing, then it should have said the Solid Snake Simulator, because that's what the campaign was setting up. MGS2 always gets points for predicting fake news in echo chambers, but that's all only ever talked about at the very end of the game. Do I think Kojima is a bad writer? No. Having a messy story that frustrates and bores me but still has something to say is more than 90% of video games can say. But when I think of MGS2 being this massive clusterfuck of confusing plot threads and twists, one question comes to mind. Did it need to be complicated to be profound? And the answer is no, it didn't. If it cut out the chaff, decided on one grand reveal and built the story around that, whilst finding ways to visualize all the stuff it talks about to lend it actual context, it could have done everything Kojima wanted to do and then some, and without being polarizing or convoluted. Kojima took bold risks few game directors would ever dare to take. But after the trick, there's a question of what now? Raiden just didn't work as a protagonist for me. Intentionally being devoid of personality doesn't change the fact that he's still devoid of personality. S3 is a great idea, but the build-up and payoff are too disconnected. And even if it weren't, the build-up consists of so much goddamn exposition that I just don't care. No, I didn't like MGS2's story one bit. And no, I didn't like most of its set pieces. But for the most part, I had and continue to have a great time playing this game. MGS2 will be 18 years old this year. And not only does it hold up beautifully, I'd argue it holds up better than some games being released today will hold up in a month. I enjoyed the hell out of most of my time with MGS2. And there's so much extra content that I love that completely offsets all the shit that I hate. And so my final rating for MGS2 is an 8 out of 10. So whatever your thoughts, just let me know in the comments below. If you're curious to hear my thoughts on other properties, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be tackling MGS3 next week and MGS4 1 week after. Anyway, thanks for watching. Also, Emma peed herself right before she latched onto Raiden's backside.